In a matter of hours, the newest episode, episode 11 of The Takeout, will be available for download. Wait, is it possible you're not familiar with The Takeout? Well, just so you know, it is the hottest, newest, one of the most popular political podcasts in America. And not surprisingly, it's hosted by me, Major Garrett. My title here, Chief White House Correspondent for CBS News. Look, The Takeout is a great conversation. We do it over a meal. Today it was lunch. Our guest, Stephanie Schriock, president of Emily's List. This is why he's the world's greatest podcast sidekick. Our senior political editor, Steve Chaggaris, we talked to her about her love of country music, the rise of women in political office, those seeking it and those who've already attained it, and which particular events foiled Hillary Clinton's chance to secure the presidency. Let's listen to one of her observations about that still touchy subject for a lot of Democrats.
We had the most qualified, experienced, talented individual who would have made a fabulous president stepping up and running. She was the first woman to do this. We weren't sure how that was going to play out. I think the good news is that of all the things, I think she really, really showed that women can do this job, and I'm very, very grateful to Hillary Clinton for that. So if any one thing had happened,
well, give us a couple of things that happened. I asked you,
of course, we'll start.
What happened?
We'll say if Russia and Comey did not happen, she'd be president of the United States. So sort of to
that's
park
just a flat
that.
Declaration from you.
I really think that's true.
CBS News political editor Steve Chaggaris, the world's greatest podcast sidekick, is with me again. Steve, it was a fascinating conversation with Stephanie in that she is like so many Democrats who, I guess we'll get to the underlying mathematics of this, but still believe that there were these external forces, these variables that essentially denied Hillary Clinton the presidency. Trump White House doesn't believe that. A lot of voters don't believe that, but Democrats still cling to that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and she referenced this in our conversation, but there were 77,000 votes between three states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that if they flipped for Hillary Clinton, she's the president of the United States because of the Electoral College. Now, you can take whatever explanation for why those 77,000 votes went for Trump. You could say it's Jim Comey. You could say it was turnout. You could come up with whatever reasoning. We don't know, and I don't think we'll ever really know. And so, she's clinging to the idea that it was the Jim Comey letter that affected that. She could be right. That's what she's going to stick to, and there you go. But it was one of those things where you have an election this close, and it's always something. It could be anything that could have affected that.
And your experience and my experience in politics is the losers are the ones who obsess about these small numbers. X number of votes in all these other congressional districts, and guess what happens? Well, they weren't there. Right. And your obligation is to have them there the day you need it, not to look in the rearview mirror and say, well, if they'd only been there, things would be so much different.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of losers in American politics who say that all the time. And guess what? You're still losers.
They have bigger issues to figure out. Yeah, you can talk about Jim Comey, you can talk about whatever reason it was, but why was she unable to win in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan, three states that since the 80s have not gone they've gone for Democrats since the 80s, except for this year. They have to answer those questions. Why was Hillary Clinton unable to close the deal in those places, whereas every Democratic candidate going back to the 80s was able to win those states?
And Emily's List is about electing pro-choice Democratic women to Congress and other offices. We had a chance to talk to Stephanie about women in politics in general, and she had a more than mildly interesting observation about Ivanka Trump. Let's take a listen to that.
And I remember that speech that night because then she went in and talked broad strokes about child care and some other issues. And I think I made a note that I can't wait until she gives us a call and tells us that she's going to run for office as a Democrat. And so, Ivanka, when you want to come talk to us as a Democrat, she did that night. Now, unfortunately, the policies to back up some of those ideas that she had, that her father then rolled out on the campaign, are not the kind of policies that we believe would be as helpful to women as we need help right now. That being said, we're talking about a successful businesswoman who's done very, very well. I think she's a great role model for businesswomen in this country. But I think we also have to understand that right now, politics is politics, and she's, and as of it sounds like this week, working for her father in the White House, and that's going to be her role.
My biggest takeaway from that clip is, how was your lunch?
Folks, when we launched this podcast, we really didn't think it was ever going to be a TV show. And, it is a TV show on this very network. I'll get to the times when you can watch it in a moment, but...
It's the country's fastest growing podcast sensation.
And you can watch Steve eat, you can certainly watch me eat, and you'll probably enjoy that a lot less than you might imagine, watching me eat, especially this week's episode. But General Tso's chicken is always my favorite choice at Maewa. It was this week, it always will be. But my methods around that luncheon itself could use a lot of brushing up, I will tell you that.
Well, if those two clips can give you a taste of what's to come in the morning and with a podcast.
Exactly. Available all sorts of ways. We'll get to those details in a minute. Steve Chaggaris, thanks so much for staying here late. For Red and Blue, thanks so much for helping guide me through this segment about the Takeout podcast, as you do every single week on the aforementioned Takeout podcast.
Thanks for having me, Major.
Thanks. Now, don't forget, you can download the latest episode of The Takeout. It's available every Friday morning on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And if you really want to watch The Takeout, and you can, because it's kind of a TV show now, tune in on Friday and Saturday nights at 9 and midnight Eastern, right here on CBSN.